The reading is from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 19, verses 1 through 10. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man was there named, help me out here.
Zacchaeus, either way you want to say.
All right. He was a chief tax collector and was quite rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd, he could not because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed in a sycamore tree to see him, because he was going to pass along that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked upon him and said, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. All who saw it began to grumble and said, "He has gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner." And Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay it back 4 times as much." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Humanity came to seek out and to save the lost."
So, I don't know if you know the childhood song about Zacchaeus. You know, Zacchaeus was a wee little man was he. He climbed up on the sycamore tree, the Lord. Yeah. For the Lord to see. That was it. For the Lord to see. It's funny because we hear about Zacchaeus or Zacchaeus. I've heard it both ways, and I'll probably say it both ways in my sermon. But we hear about him, and usually the first thing that comes to mind is he was short. Right? Mm-hmm. We know Zacchaeus was short, so he had to climb up in a tree to see Jesus. But if you study the life and look at the life and the story and the testimony of Zacchaeus, the one thing that you will see is that was the least of his problems, was that he was short. You see, he was the chief tax collector. Now, nowadays, we think of the IRS and we shudder a little bit, right? But at the very least, we have a tax code. It may be completely undiscernible, but we do have a tax code, and somehow we can go to our tax person, and they'll put the numbers in, and they'll say, "You owe this much, and here's why." And there's usually a formula, however little sense it makes. There's some reason or rhyme for it. Go with me on that. But back in this time, the government would say, this person owes so much. Let's just use the example of 2,000 denarii. Okay, the yearly taxes will be 2,000 denarii for this person. The only person that knows that figure that was just given is the tax collector. And the tax collector then can go to the person and say, "You owe 3,500 denarii." And nothing would stop them from saying that, from sometimes doubling, maybe more than doubling. The tax collectors were notoriously crooked and notoriously rich because of their crookedness. They were corrupt. They would take from. Everybody knew that they were taking from them. The only person more corrupt than the tax collector was the chief of tax collectors. Because he was the one running the whole thing and saying, "I know you got more than that, give it up." No. So it was like the ultimate Ponzi scheme. He got very wealthy off of the corruption of the people below him, and he continued to succeed in life because of it. Succeed in life. I use that term liberally. He became wealthy at the expense of others. He was disliked by everyone, but he didn't care because he was also completely disinterested in what they thought of him. He felt like he had life pretty much as it needed to be. He was uncaring and he was unrepentant, and that's how he went through life. So it's fascinating to me that when Jesus came to town, this unrepentant, uncaring, disliked, and disinterested, crooked man wanted to see Jesus. I found myself asking why. Of course, I can't answer that question, but I can suppose. I wonder if maybe he just wanted to keep an eye on the crowds. check out the people and how much money they really had. Pay attention to them and know who he could get for a bigger buck. Maybe he wanted to see how they interacted with Jesus. Maybe it was just the thing to do. Everybody was going to see Jesus, and of course he wasn't one to be left out, so he was going to go see Jesus too. I'm not sure. Maybe it was curiosity. What is this hubbub about this Jesus guy? I'm going to go check it out. But I often wonder too, if perhaps he had heard somebody talk about their interaction with this man that changed their lives. I read about the Samaritan woman at the well in John. Remember what she said after she had this interaction with Jesus? She ran back to the town and said, "You must come meet the man who just told me everything there is to know about me." And the incredible thing about that was she didn't say that in a way that said, "I'm so ashamed because he knew everything about me." She said it in a way that said, "He knew and he loved me anyway. He knew and he inspired hope within me because I already knew everything about me. But he knew and it meant something more. He knew and it gave me hope." Maybe Zacchaeus heard something like that and thought, I wonder if he could do the same for me.
Yeah.
I wonder if Zacchaeus thought, this wealth, this corruption, this system, this awesome system that I've created, for some reason has given me wealth, has given me power, has given me means beyond what I could possibly understand or comprehend until I receive it. And yet for some reason there's still this pit in my stomach that is gnawing at the emptiness of unfulfillment. I wonder if he thought, I have everything and yet I still want. I must find something to quench this thirst. Maybe this Jesus has something that I can find. I don't know. I'm guessing. I don't know why he went to see Jesus, but I do know that he went. And I also don't know why he climbed the tree. Luke thinks it's because he's short. I wonder if it's because he wanted to remain at a safe distance. I wonder if he didn't want to get his elbows dirty in the crowd, but he wanted to stay where his view was uncluttered and yet nothing would be expected of him. He was untouchable and unreachable. He could see, but he didn't have to do anything beyond it. I mean, let's face it. The tree would seem to be a pretty safe strategy if it weren't for the incredible view, the gaze, the knowing of Jesus who walked by. And so Jesus came, looked up, didn't care about the tree branch in a way, didn't care that it would require him to climb down, didn't care that the crowd would be in the way. Once he got down, Jesus said, "Zacchaeus, get down from that tree." That's how I hear it. Said kind of saying, "What are you doing? Come down from that tree right now because I'm going to dinner at your house." What a crazy story, right? Can you just hear the crowd grumbling? Why him? The chief of tax collectors. Can you just hear Zacchaeus himself on that tree branch quizzically questioning, why me? Maybe even in a little bit of fear. Maybe even a little bit afraid of what this interaction might mean. Now, here's my confession. That was the intro to my sermon. And the rest of my sermon, I threw away this morning. It's not good news for you, I'm going to say. Not good news for me either. Because I got this message this morning that I feel like we so desperately need to hear. It hit me here, and it hurt, so just be careful. Be careful from your tree branch right now. Because I was going to talk about how we have that emptiness, and we understand that emptiness, and so maybe we can relate a little bit to Zacchaeus. I mean, maybe we weren't the ones that are going and taking and abusing and oppressing and corrupting. Maybe we weren't that one, but we still have that emptiness. We still have that need for God to transform us. And that's when the hammer hit me in the head. Because I think we are Zacchaeus.
Yeah.
I think we are the ones
Yeah.
who take. I think we are the ones who walk around in corruption and blame it on a system and don't take responsibility for the people who we are.
Come on.
I think about America. It's 5% of the world population. That's kind of small. Wee little bitty that we are climbing up in our sycamore tree. I think about this 5% of the world's population that takes 24% of the world's energy and uses it for our comfort and our good and our health and our well-being and our happiness. And we don't care that across the world somebody's home is floating away because we don't care what we're doing to the climate. We don't care what we're doing to the world.
Come on.
We're taking because that's just the way the system is, and we are here. Why us? Why not us? From a little bit different of a perspective. We're 5% of the world's population with 39% of the world's wealth, and yet we can't get enough. It's not enough to be wealthy. We must now also have the cheapest products that we can possibly find, and so we create factories in places where people have to work for below a living wage for 20 hours a day so that we can walk in and have the trading cards we want, or the cell phones we want, or the cameras we want, or the clothes we want.
Tell it, Sharon.
Don't say we're not Zacchaeus.
Yeah.
It's not just an empty little hole desert wanting more. It's the fact that we're walking around the world, and if we don't recognize it, it's because we've closed our eyes and chosen not to. It's not that the system's not there, and it's not that we're not taking in a corrupt world. We have to recognize it before we can do something about it. And I'm going to tell you, the branches of the sycamore tree are a whole lot more comfortable than looking in the eyes of Jesus and recognizing that we've got some reconciling to do. We must have our oil. We must have our cars. We must have our planes and trains and automobiles, even though factories are killing villages and wars are killing people for this oil that we must have. We must have our cell phones, a brand new one every single year. In spite of the fact that to build our cell phones, you've got to go get cassiterite, and cassiterite is now the modern day blood diamond in which people are being abused and mistreated and killed. Ow! See, I told you it was not good news when this changed for me. I didn't like it at all. And yet I have to recognize that if I'm going to call myself a follower of Christ, I must recognize that I need to do something a little different. I need to stop taking part of the system. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know how. I don't know how to stop, but I do know that doing nothing is not the way to stop. I do know that closing my eyes to it can never change the reality of it. And that's painful. I even talk about the e-waste, where you go across the world and see young boys who are tasked with taking care of our e-waste getting cancer because what are we going to do about it? We're Zacchaeus. We're the chief tax collector. What are we going to do about it? A country that attributes our wealth and success to the hands and the blessings of God completely ignores the fact that our wealth and our success came on the backs of black bodies that we took from their countries and that we used in slavery and peonage. And then when that wasn't enough, we just incarcerated them and made them the enemy so we never had to reconcile. A country that we look around and say, God bless America, forgetting that we took America from somebody else. And that wasn't our land to begin with.
Right.
And this is a horrible message to preach. I'm going to tell you because I like the messages of affirmation. I like to come in and say, oh, the grace of God has changed us and compelled us and moves us. And I don't know where to go from here. Other than I know that from the branch of the sycamore tree, I must first come down. And I must first
first look into the eyes of Jesus, and I must know that I can do something. If I can't do something, what good is the grace of God? If we can't change the system, what good is the grace of God in the system? Yeah. And that's what is so heavy on my heart this morning. We are Zacchaeus. We are the wealthy at the expense of others. We are the disliked in the world, but completely disinterested of what the world feels about us. We are the uncaring and unrepentant. So what are we going to do? The question is, when we look in the eyes of Jesus, can we do anything different? And I believe we can. I believe it's hard, and I don't think it was easy for Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus gave away half his wealth straight off the top. Boom, there it is. And from the remaining half, he said, I will pay people back 4 times what I took from them. Don't think that was easy. Don't think that answering the call of Jesus in your life is an easy response. Don't think it's just a quick, I'm saved and it's over. I said earlier in discipleship that I was raised in a church where the grace of God came first and no works needed, none necessary. And of course, I believe that for grace. The grace of God goes before us. God is so much bigger than our unfaithfulness. And I do believe that, I said this also this morning, I don't believe God is all about guilt and shame. I don't. But at the same time, I believe the grace of God then requires, it necessitates response. Yeah. When we have received grace, does it change us? When we have received grace, can we do something different? Yeah. And I believe we can. And I believe we can not just as a small group of people, but I believe we can as a small group of people who can change the systems of oppression. Will our response be radical? That's the question. Is grace radical enough in us that we can do something different? Because I'm going to tell you, if you're in this place, you can do something different. Amen. The question is not will you. I mean, the question is will you. The question is not can you. The question is will you. Yeah. If the grace of God has changed you, do something. Yep. That's my challenge. Yes. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm going to go home, because remember, this hit me this morning. I haven't had time to act on it. I'm going to go home and change all my light bulbs, first of all. I think it's important. That sounds silly, doesn't it? No. But it's something. It's a start. If we start acting, what if we can make a difference? What if we could make a difference? We are Zacchaeus. And we can sit there and say, why me? Why did God bless me? Why did God do so much? Put me in this place of wealth and blessing and abundance. And we can close our eyes to the rest of it. The question we really should be asking is, why not me? Like Janice said, why not me? Why can't I be the cog in the system that starts to change the way it works? Why can't I be the voice that tells the truth? Why can't I be the hand that does something different? We are Zacchaeus. Come down from the tree. Yeah. Look into the eyes of Jesus and make grace active in your life. Amen. Amen.